Welcome. I'm Larry Olsen, and this is the Brain Vault Podcast. Did you know that the thoughts you're thinking right now are shaping the life you'll live tomorrow? Well, in this podcast, we just don't talk about mindset. We decode the blueprint behind behavior, performance, and possibility. This is where science meets real-world strategy, and your brain stops running on autopilot. If you're ready to turn default thinking into intentional living, you're in the right place. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Brain Vault Podcast, where you know science meets success. And if you're someone who knows there's a bigger version of you waiting to emerge, someone ready to lead, influence, and elevate not just your performance, but your entire life. And today's conversation is going to speak directly to that. Our guest, Louisa Loran, has spent her career guiding people and organizations out of limitation and into possibility. And what makes her work so powerful is that she understands something most people miss. And that is that before any business transforms, the people inside of it have to. And transformation always begins with a mindset shift. So Louisa's impact spans some of the world's most iconic companies. You know, at Google, she launched, check this out, $1 billion supply chain solutions business by looking and seeing opportunities that others overlooked. At Maersk, she co-created a strategy that redefined the brand, and this is very important, and doubled its share price. So she just isn't amazing and fun to listen to. She actually provides information that organizations who apply it are able to transform even beyond their own expectations. And early on, she helped legendary houses like Moet Hennessy and Diageo evolve without losing what made them extraordinary. And that's what we offer you, is the opportunity to go beyond what you're currently experiencing, but not leaving that incredible, remarkable footprint that you and only you can leave. And that's who you are. Her new book, Leadership, Autonomy and Motion, tackles a question every aspiring leader should wrestle with. And here it is. If you're constantly moving forward, how do you know the direction you're heading in is worth your life's energy? Life's energy. With endorsements from Dr. Marshall Goldsmith and Harvard's Felix Oberholzer G, her work is a roadmap for anyone ready to shift from pressure-driven performance to purpose-driven leadership. Today, she's here to assist us in understanding the mindset, alignment, and internal clarity required to sustain real transformation, no matter your title, background, or starting point. Louisa, welcome to the Brain Vault Podcast, where we're so excited to experience your presence today.
Well, thank you so much, Larry. That was an amazing introduction, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Oh, as we are. I've got an opening question that I'd like to ask, and then we can take it from there.
Of
You know,
course.
Louisa, you've built strategies that reshape some of the most powerful global brands. When you step into an organization that's stuck in old patterns or unclear direction, what's the very first signal you look for that tells you where real transformation needs to begin?
Good question. And I would say I mean, of course, for me, someone who has seen so many industries from the inside, worked with so many customers, you get very much attuned to the cultures and the convictions within an organization. So I do not look at the balance sheet. I look at the people. I look at, is a conversation monopolized by a few individuals, or is there a open conversation yet with a shared commitment and direction? because what you often encounter is a team that's brought together because of their skills, but everyone's there to prove their point instead of saying, which puzzle do I add to this equation so we can be stronger together? So it doesn't take a lot. You can sit in one meeting, and quite quickly can you assess whether a change is just something on paper or it's actually a transformation that's going to be driven by the individuals that you are in front of.
And I couldn't agree more. And what is it about you that you believe allows you to have this kind of additional eye to pick up, who's dominant, who's not, who is going to need a little bit of a, some tough love, perhaps, and who do I already have on my side? Inside simply being people that are willing to go beyond the current routines and break away from some of the things they've gotten so comfortable and some hold so dear to their heart.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think every organization has their change makers, and hopefully these change makers have some sponsors who actually want this, but maybe don't even have either have the muscle or the time or the courage to be the people who are fronting it, but they're there as a backup. But what I find really interesting and why I have honed this skill is, or how I've honed this skill, is truly from, as you said, I've moved myself from very, very different environments. I grew up in some of the world's most prominent luxury and lifestyle brands, great moments of entertainment that we brought to people across the world. And this understanding of brands and consumer needs and understanding how to, let's say, tweak a portfolio so it actually suits their needs in a responsible way, because of course it was alcohol, um, taught me to, as I said, be curious about not just what people say, but why they do what they do and what could they be willing to do next. I then took that into a very, very operational environment at Maersk. I mean, people know the containers, they see them driving all the streets of every corner of the world, but a business that has been built in a, let's say, very operational environment that has had decades of standardization, low margins, etc. And suddenly I came in and had complementary knowledge that I needed to make relevant to these individuals, relevant to people who didn't see the need for change despite the opportunity of higher margins. So it was once again me just, let's say, being curious about how could I make my information relevant to them? How could I not just plow through and say what I said, but also reframe my own understanding, because what was valuable information in a consumer world was not irrelevant in a B2B, but it needed to be deployed in a very different way. So my reframing of that, and that happened once again when I later moved into Google, because at Maersk I also drove our platform businesses, our e-commerce, etc., and had a large role in defining digital presence. But then you jump into a company that's born digital, and you realize what you thought before was correct is not incorrect, but it's just not the full truth. So this element of positioning yourself in different environments to challenge your thinking, to capture the nuances, capture the interdependencies, and also understand, let's say, for instance, if in a Maersk world we said we're going to build a platform and we're going to bring everyone to us, it's because it was created in a culture and a historical environment of asset optimization. In a Google world, this is we're going to put it out in the world, and if it's valuable to someone else, then we'll see it grow. So it's a very big difference of enablement versus control. And these, as I said, subtle nuances is what has honed my skill to capture it very fast in a room. But I will say for sure, it is not unique to me. Everyone can learn it. And I am definitely seeing how those who attune this don't just focus on transforming businesses, transforming companies. They see opportunities faster, they grasp them easier, they feel more comfortable during change themselves and are able to step into it. But I'm sure we're going to come back to that as well.
Well, when we take a look at the individual that is perceiving you, visually and auditorily and, and kinesthetically, because you definitely send off a vibe and people get a feeling of your presence. And fortunately for you, it's a very positive one.
Mhm.
And yet the brain loves predictability. We spend more time listening to ourselves, talk to ourselves about what somebody else is saying than actually really listening to what they have to say. And you've got a small percentage of people that are open and willing to listen and find the value. And then again, you have to have the nuance and the understanding and the skill set to be able to create an audience. I always tell leaders, don't open your mouth if you don't have an audience. And just because people are in the room doesn't mean you have an audience. And how are you getting their attention? So here you've got these organizations that are already successful. And there's a lot of things that they've fallen in love with, if you will. And I always
Mm.
tell leaders, save falling in love for your family and friends, not for an idea. Or you became so resistant to really opening up to it, you're not even aware of it. What are some of the things that you are able to take somebody who's kind of like, yeah, I'm open, I'm hearing what you have to say, and then providing them with either is it the questions or is it the information
Yeah. Yeah.
that allows me to go, oh, I want to hear more about that.
Mm. Yeah. Well, a couple of things on that. First of all, I've learned the hard way, do not plant seeds on frosty ground. Like,
Okay.
if
Okay.
someone is completely frosty, find someone else and build a movement around them. So,
Okay.
uh, I've learned that the hard way. I'm sure many others have as well.
Yeah. I've wanted to
Um,
fire some clients in my early years,
yeah.
but it
But
was
I've
my
also,
fault.
well, I think we all need to have these learnings. That's what we get from. And I will say, being open was also one of the things that was hardest for me, but as I think for many people throughout their career, because if you are performing well and expected to have all the answers, that tunes your mind to not be as open as you should be. However,
Mm.
when I enter into these conversations, I do firmly believe, and you can ask many people, I say, if you can only ask for one trait, what will it be? It will be to be open, because that is both where you confirm and change your perspective. That is where you also can validate, even if you are right. But being
Mm.
open to me has to also show that you have a willingness to unlearn some of your assumptions before you can then rebuild a new pattern.
Mm.
So
Mm.
this principle of saying, I want you to change, you should change, never works. But going and asking someone, what would it take to change your mind,
Mm. Mm.
helps actually uncover the real problem, which rarely is what people start reacting to. But digging and showing curiosity about what are some of those blockages. Is it in fact expectations from a board, from owners, from peers, whatever it may be? Or is there a capability gap that actually needs to be addressed before anyone would even be willing to change? And
Mm.
then I would also say it is surely not surprising to you, but throughout my career, the reaffirmation that it is very rarely actually about the business problem. It is much more often about the individual, let's say, legacy or ambitions or personal fears or things like that. And that's really why I talk about how do we build these behaviors, because I said the more you train these, the more you can feel comfortable with whatever thing it is you are being asked to change, transform, or just be open to.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. One of the one of the things that I share with my leaders is that greatest gift you can give to another individual, and yet it's the most difficult thing that human beings do and have to do. And I asked them, what do you think the greatest gift is you can give to another human, yet the most difficult thing for a human to do? And they throw out all these kind of things like trust and empathy and everything else, which are byproducts. But as you know, it's listening. And you have probably, and aren't even aware of it, developed some phenomenal listening skills. Most leaders listen for the answer,
Mm,
for them to be able to resolve, not for the answer, but this problem, and then they come up with the solution. But while they're looking for the solution, they're not listening to the individual any longer. They're listening to themselves. And it's a real delicate. I always open up with, I'm going to ask you not to intellectualize this information. That's how I open up. And then I ask them, what do you think I mean by that? And I'm basically breaking them down to this old routine that the brain will go quickly get them doing, and that is agreeing and disagreeing.
yeah.
And you've found some things, you've discovered some things along the way that allow you to not get caught in the same trap.
Mm.
because you've got your own preconceived notions when you come in. You identify, okay, that's someone and that's someone there, and this guy's in, this gal's out, whatever it may be. How do you reconcile with your own looking for what you want to see to truly be open to
Yeah.
hearing what they have to say?
Yeah. Well, I can start with saying I have two sons, age 13 and 15.
Okay.
And the worst thing they can say, if I hear them say about that is someone who da 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 da.
Ah,
I'm like, you don't know that. This is a situation they reacted, etc. Because I think learning early, not just to create boxes and define roles for people, is really, really important. But that wasn't really your question. But I think it is something that some people are very, very fast at doing because it creates, let's say, simplicity in their mind. Personally, I'm a super curious person. I
yeah.
want to learn, I want to discover, I want to meet people with different perspectives and flip ideas because actually that's how I think that we continuously grow and develop and use those learnings to be more effective in decisions. I will also say the amount of time and energy spent on having internal conversations instead of actually just tuning that out and actively listening is scary and impressive at the same time, right? And I think one of the things that have really taught me this is actually something that is not in the workplace. But when you do a physical exercise, in my instance, it's dance, it could be whatever, that moment of you are fully attuned, you are ready, you're present, you are alert. And if you take a move, you step with conviction. You do not
Hmm.
like tiptoe forward. And I think bringing that into a business environment where the same thing is required, you cannot be worried about 15 other things. You cannot have that preconceived notion when you sit in front of someone who's trying to educate, expand your experience, your knowledge and share an experience. You need to be as ready, as alert, and then you need to quickly put that puzzle together with the former information and respond in a either conclusive or exploratory way, depending on what it is. But I think this balance of both being open, being curious, and being willing to step with conviction is really, really important because we also see some leaders who are like, well, this is great. I'm just going to be explorative. I'm going to be open. But what happens? The business doesn't move because we also seek someone that we can follow, and that is not someone who is not able to do that calculation in the head, do the puzzle, and see this is how it complements, and therefore this is where we're going to go.
Beautiful. I I don't know how many times you've probably been told this, but you need to hear this about yourself. You you've worked on this, but I think there's a lot of innateness to it too, that you don't create defensiveness.
Mm.
And that's because, and just talking with you, you've been wide open to what I'm sharing. You listen to it. You actually respond to what I've brought up as opposed to going to your agenda. And all of these things just validate what I think is the most powerful leadership statement one can possibly have. Came out of Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's mouth. And you've heard it before, but leaders hear it for the first time sometimes when they recognize all this knowledge and all this experience that they have. And Roosevelt said, people don't care what you know. They really don't care,
Mm. Mm.
as you know the rest until they know that you care. And I asked them, what are you doing on purpose to demonstrate you care? And you do it naturally. And you've like you said, that you learned the hard way on some things. But I was really excited about having the interview. I had an IV of NAD yesterday, which is a real cool opportunity to help your cells and everything else. And while I was sitting there, because it's about an hour and a half, I brought up one of your YouTubes and I was listening to you being interviewed. And I was kind of listening to it and saying, well, I'd never asked that question. And I was very judgmental about it. But I was fascinated with you that has accomplished things that, people will really understand what you've accomplished puts you into a huge who said of the greatest magnitude. And sometimes that can be intimidating.
Mm.
You certainly have the credibility to have these people go, well, she was able to do that and that and that. Well, maybe I should open up a little bit. But you also have a gift. And that is just something that just resonates with you. And our audience can hear it. And they can also hear that beautiful accent that you have as well. But it's the ability to create an environment that allows our mirror neurons to want to replicate. So you play into the law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
You model what you're asking them to do. Now, is that on purpose or is that just something you naturally do?
I think it has become something I naturally do. I had a boss at one point in time, and before I go into this, just thank you.
You're welcome.
Very, very kind of you to say, and I am humbled and grateful
Oh,
for articulation. Thank you.
oh, thank you.
But I would say it is something I've grown into. I had this boss at one point in time, a phenomenally talented guy and very, very tough. And most people would say that he is only tough, not phenomenal and talented and warm, etc. But I had a great relationship with him and still do actually. Um, he kept saying to me, Louisa, I know no one like you. You can have deliver the sharpest message, very tough, very almost challenging, but you do it with a smile and
Mm,
you have the biggest heart in business. And I think I didn't realize how valuable this was throughout, let's say, a large part of my career. But as I started to move to the point where actually I could see how me showing up this way, saying the things also people didn't ask, being honest about it, also being slapped back sometimes because I went too far, but
mm,
always doing it with respect and sharing the problem with them and carrying their fears with me as well. The more I could show up in this way, the more they could too. And
mm.
seeing the rings in the water spread this way, of course, encourage more of this behavior. And I will say, now I wouldn't put it as impressively as you did, but it is who I am and what I do.
Mm, mhm.
And I love seeing how that courage and presence and conviction and the beautiful word you used actually enables others to move further too.
Well, I think that those listening, no matter where we are in life, whether we find ourselves as a spouse, whether we find ourselves as a parent, whether we find ourselves as working for someone or having others work for us, or whatever situation we find ourselves in, you and I are talking about what resonates.
Mm.
And this whole gallop, about 2 out of 3 are staring at a computer screen, disengaged. They're not terrorists. They're just thinking about something else other than work.
Yeah.
And the reason they're doing that is because they're not feeling valued. They're not being acknowledged. They're they're
Mm.
they're just there as a means to an end. And unfortunately, it's too prevalent.
Yeah.
And it gets people to start discounting themselves. This remarkable human being that pops out of the womb with all this standard operating equipment they had
Mm.
nothing to do with. It's just asking them to have the time of your life, bring out the best in others, and watch what remarkable results you begin to experience. And you've packaged that. I am in such admiration right back at you. Um, and you've done it in such a beautiful humanistic way, as well as bringing the humility to the party without trying to act humble.
Mm.
And you present without checking boxes off. And I think that's a challenge that leaders face. Okay, I'll do that. I'll say good morning to everybody. And then they go back to their office. How many did I say good morning to? And how many did they really listen to? And
Probably
how
none.
many did they pass by to say good morning to the fourth one,
Yeah.
not intentionally ignoring those people along the way? So
Mm.
those at home, or wherever they may be listening to this podcast, bring myself more up to speed here. Um, some people are stuck. Some people are challenged. Some people are finding themselves discounting who they are. And
Mm.
that can unfortunately demonstrate itself to others. And those aren't the people that we want to pick and we want to move forward in the organization. because we know the power of influence.
Mm,
What would
mm.
you share with them that maybe would give them the opportunity to maybe think a little differently? And then how do they go about getting in touch with and finding more about what you do, who you are, and how they can bring you into their organization?
Yeah, no, of course, happy to share. And I think that the point is really that exactly as you said, it starts with yourself. Every meaningful change starts with yourself. And you may be in an organization where you look up and you say, I can't do this because the current is so much going this way and I can't swim the other way. But the point is, of course, that you need to first show that before anyone notices and before anyone
Mm.
else maybe builds up that courage. So really what I have aimed to do with the
Share
creative.
really quickly, if you would, what you mean by you need to show that.
Yes, exactly. So this is what I've tried to bring into the book because all that experience, the many stories I've encountered, I mean, I could talk about this for years because that's how much experience if you capture all the nuances. But when I tried to then say, actually, can I codify it? There was actually some clear patterns that were repeatable and showed those who were able to do this really well. And
Mm.
these were four core behaviors. So envisioning ambitiously. So for
Mm.
those who have that natural curiosity and that natural tendency to say, actually, what could happen? And what if this? And what if I had all the money in the world? What if I didn't have this? Um, Dreamers. I tell some stories about this and motivate them to actually enable and play, role play to say how can you actually envision more ambitiously. Secondly, once you have that beautiful pie in the sky or desert island or whatever it may be, how can we learn actually to reach that? And quite
Mm.
often that is a matter of expanding with curiosity again. So expanding, of course, talks about like breathing in, creating space, etc. But it also talks about accessing the collective intelligence. This is a lot about being open. It talks about partnering and standing on the shoulders of others, something that we also now see in a technologically enabled world. It's really important not to have a set definition of collective intelligence, my peers, but more of a wider space. The third behavior, once you've seen that island, once you've built that ladder, is of course steering decisively. And this is where you need your arms, your limbs to actually say, I can't just be completely open. I need to prioritize. I need to understand how to staff, how to set myself up clearly for this. And this is where I bring in some of the more traditional capabilities from a leadership perspective, but in a more humanistic and nuanced way, because I've seen how some of the businesses that are great at envisioning and expanding, they don't necessarily have the ability to steer, versus many of
Mm.
those that steer today, they haven't done the first. So they cut and cut and cut and cut out of nothing, versus those who dream and dream and dream without direction and optimization.
Mhm. Mm.
But the fourth and really important element of this is embodying with presence. And
Mm.
this is where I have truly seen that some of those others you can staff, but if you cannot yourself embody that change and show how you're willing to take a step forward and define something that people will follow, this is not how true transformation is going to take place. So
Mm.
exactly as you started out saying, knowing that transformation starts with yourself. And as you can imagine, this can be a continuous development curve. You can keep envisioning. I do it multiple times a day. Then I ask some questions. Then I expand. Then I find new input. Then I say, actually, is this a priority? And I do it or do not do it. And then I think about, does this require me to act in a different way? And how do I grow into it? But it could also be a large scale 5-year or 10-year transformation of a business. So that's why these are behaviors, and those are at the core of the book I brought forward. And as you can hear, we talk about the eyes, the lung, the arms, and of course the spine.
Mm.
So that's why it's leadership anatomy in motion. And of course, talking into the fact that all of these things are things that everyone has and that they can choose to use. It does not require you to go out and build a skill, invest, or whatever. It's more about a mindset and training it this way. So of course the book is one way to start. So the book is out in every single channel you could think of. If you can't find it, reach out to me. But of course Amazon is let's say a main access point for many. Also I love continuously growing and learning through the executive advisories that I do now. The benefit of these is, of course, we move from now, we just talk about the how. In these cases, we go quite specific into what, not just how do you behave, but what does this mean for your strategy, for your future organization, for your technology roadmap, etc. So that's also an option. And then I am, of course, continuously trying to make the rings in the water spread of this form of leading yourself and your business. So LinkedIn, louisaloran.com, and hopefully we'll see more and more people represent this message going forward as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And I thank all of you who tuned in. Lots of choices out there. And the only thing we can't get back in our life is our time. So we both thank you from the bottom of our heart for investing your time with us. And once you get some ideas, recognize the best avenue to find out the value is not to overanalyze, but to actually take action on it and find out for yourself whether this works or not. Because that's the first person you need to convince if you're in any danger of transforming. And, I love that statement, Louisa, about transformation. And, it talks about the chameleon. You may have heard this before, that little lizard.
Yeah.
Change is a chameleon turning from tan to green. Transformation is a caterpillar emerging as a glorious butterfly.
Absolutely.
And we're really not asking people to change because for most people, it's not sustainable anyway. But to transform, to step into a more valuable and positively influencing of others form requires transformation, and transformation is sustainable. And that's why you've been so successful, because you are a master at it. And we were all so privileged to have your presence with us today. Thank you for what you've shared and for taking your time. Everybody connect with her, find a way to get her book and read it.
Yes.
And then take action on it and be serious about this one individual called you, who has this one opportunity in this thing called life. And if you look at the existence of time back to the 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang, or 6 days, whatever your philosophy of creation is, bottom line is, and I love this, and you've heard of this, if 13.8 billion years was a calendar,
Yeah.
we came in on the 31st of December at 11:59 p.m. So we're not, we just got here. We don't stay very long as us, but while we're here, we can make a difference that lasts a lifetime. And
Absolutely.
Louisa, that's what you're doing. So when you sleep at night, have that big grin on your face about what a remarkable difference you're making in the lives of those of us who are blessed to hear you today, and the people you work with. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Larry, and thank you so much for creating a channel where we can empower more people, because that's really where the value comes, not just from one person, but having the rings in the water spread.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. All of you, we'll see you next time, and thank you for being with us. Take care.
Absolutely. Take care.